What is up, everybody? This is Two Jersey Kids. I am Gary Seisel, and this is episode 40 and a half. Now, for those that aren't familiar with this podcast, we are a video game podcast that release episodes every Tuesday and Friday. Our Tuesday episode typically focuses on game-related topics. That could be our most disappointing gaming purchases, our Destiny 2 reveal discussion, and our Friday episode focuses on news from the gaming industry, which could include Far Cry 5 rumors or even Red Dead Redemption 2 discussion. You can find all of our previous episodes on iTunes, on Stitcher, Google Play, and more. Feel free to give us a listen, a rating. We appreciate it all. Additionally, if you want to connect with us, in the Twitter sphere, we are on Twitter at Two Jersey Kids. We appreciate any feedback, comments, suggestions. Doesn't matter. We love it. We love all you out there. Thanks for joining us tonight, or at least myself tonight. I am by myself. Adam's on vacation right now. So tonight is our topic-based episode. Okay, we're going to be focusing on remastered games, the good, the bad, the ugly. We got it all here. So I've broken it down basically into a few categories. We have Remaster Pros, Remaster Cons, the best/worst remasters, and then finally a final verdict on whether or not remasters are good or bad. Now, I wanted to start off by saying I wanted to take an unbiased look at remasters. So, over the years, remasters have received a lot of criticisms for a lot of different reasons, both warranted and unwarranted, but I wanted to dive into both the good and bad reasons or aspects to determine whether remasters are good or bad for the gaming industry overall. So first, we're going to start off by talking about the pros of remastered games. Now, remasters, this is the first thing I came up with. Remasters bring previous generation classics to a new audience. So, for example, Adam was a diehard Xbox 360 player back in the day. He had a PlayStation 3, but didn't really play it that much. Now, the Uncharted series was a PS3 exclusive, and it was later released on the PlayStation 4 as a collection, 1, 2, and 3 included in that little bundle. So Adam, who transitioned later on from the Xbox 360 to the PS4, got to experience the original Uncharted for the first time. So by releasing this game, they basically introduced this game to a completely new audience of players that maybe were Xbox 360 fans, maybe never owned a console before, so they got to experience the glory of Uncharted for the first time. Now, on the other hand, you have the younger gamers out there that, like I said, maybe they didn't have a console. Maybe they were too young. Maybe they had a PlayStation 3 but were too young to play Uncharted because of the teen rating. So through this collection, through this remaster, they got to experience the Uncharted series also for the first time on the current gen console and enjoy the Uncharted series like we all have in the past. Now, remasters can ultimately polish an already fantastic title. This is the second pro I basically came up with. So you have there's basically no such thing as a perfect game out there. We all know that. Every game has bugs, every game has imperfections, but through remasters, the user experience can be greatly improved. Now, once again, I'm going to go back to Uncharted here as an example. So for people that have been around since the beginning of PS3, the original Uncharted was great. It was a great game, but the gunplay ultimately was really awkward, very unpolished, and sometimes honestly kind of distracted from the overall experience of the game, which was pretty phenomenal in its own right. In addition, it also used the infamous 6-axis control scheme that required you to tilt your controller to throw grenades and even balance your controller to walk across obstacles. Now, this was not very popular. You can talk to Adam about this even. It was a very annoying, awkward game mechanic that just had no place in the game, honestly, or in any game for that matter. So, in the Uncharted collection, I thought that these issues were ultimately eliminated. You had the gameplay, which was drastically improved from the first title, gameplay and gunplay basically improved from the first title, making it more responsive, more crisp, and less distracting overall. Now, the 6-axis control scheme was also eliminated, making gamers like myself very happy. No longer did I have to wave my controller all over the place to get, a grenade thrown at an enemy. So that was obviously a very welcome change. So, lastly here with the Uncharted collection, you had a slew of graphical improvements that really made the game look more beautiful than it already did on the original consoles, which is saying something because for anyone that's played the Uncharted games, you know how beautiful and awesome the game already looks, especially with all the scenery involved in that game. So I wanted to also basically go into another example of a remaster gone right, which would be Grand Theft Auto 5. Now, ironically, Grand Theft Auto 5 is actually why I decided to come up with this topic for this particular episode. I was playing through it the other night, playing through basically all the characters, whether it's Franklin or Trevor or Mike, and it was just such a satisfying game. I remember playing it back in the day. It was so much fun. It was so hilarious at times, and I got to thinking I wanted to maybe try it out on the PlayStation 4. I only really had the PlayStation 3 version, so I kind of wanted to try it out on the PS4. I was looking it up online, see how much it was. And lo and behold, here I am now doing this episode about remasters. So the thing with Grand Theft Auto 5 is that it had substantial graphical improvements. We all know that. It went from PS3 to PS4. They really did a great job. They hit the ball out of the park on that. But the biggest thing about this remaster is that they went the extra mile. You had hundreds of new songs added to the radio stations. You had the new pedestrian dialogue, new animals, a slew of other things. They also added in a first-person mode, which included basically the car interiors. So anyone that's played the PS3 version or basically any other Grand Theft Auto game, you know that there was never a first-person mode before, especially in cars, at least not to my knowledge. So they added in the ability to obviously play the game in the first person, but also drive in the first person. So not only were they remastering the game, but they were adding in additional content as well that really improved the overall user experience. It made the game feel really fresh and exciting. Now, this is saying something because this game was released back in like 2013. So you're adding new features and making the game feel fresh even after all those years of playing. So it's very impressive. And the fact that Grand Theft Auto 5 has been so successful is really no surprise when you look back at this sort of thing. So overall here, with regards to basically the pros I just mentioned, just one, a couple of many pros of remasters. When a developer cares about their work and their fans, you can ultimately basically make a remaster that's worth the money and the time. You can make a remaster that's worth the time invested by the player base. They're going to really enjoy it, and they're going to have a really great time. So remasters can work out, folks. They can be done. Now, on the other hand, we have the Remaster Cons. Now, as we all know, remasters can be terrible. Developers can completely miss the mark. They can completely misread what customers want, and you basically get the examples that I'm basically going to read off right here. So remasters, some people believe that remasters basically are just re-releases of games that already exist. And a good example of this, I think, would be Skyrim on the PC. So from a console gamer's perspective, when I got the Skyrim Remastered Edition, I was really pleased with it. I was very happy. There was a lot of things about the game on the PS3 version anyway. Okay, so I had the PS3 version, which was a port of the Xbox 360 game. Xbox 360. That version of the game never felt right to me. It felt sluggish because I had played the Xbox 360 over friends' places and stuff. So the PlayStation 3 version just never felt right to me. It always felt off. It felt wonky. It felt slow. There was some bugs in the game. So with the remastered version, I got a game that just finally felt right. It felt responsive. And in addition to that, I also got the DLC that I never got a chance to play. So, I played the Dragonborn DLC, but never quite got into the Hearthfire or the Dawnguard DLC. So by buying the remastered version, I got to experience a much smoother experience, but also I got to play the new DLC. So it was well worth it for me. But on the PC version, many PC players felt that Skyrim Remaster was completely worthless. And the reason being here is that the modding community had already provided the graphical improvements, and they have already provided additional content. If you look at the modding or some of the mods available to Skyrim on the PC, it's amazing. You have the Sky UI mod, which improves the UI to make it more user-friendly. You have the Skyrim Redone mod, which overhauls fundamental aspects of the game, such as skill trees, perks, and stats. You have the Alternate Start mod, which lets you begin in a completely different part of the world to start the game. You can be a tavern patron, a necromancer in a hidden lair, a simple farmer, and dozens of other things to start the game. It's amazing the amount of mods that they have created on the PC to make Skyrim a completely new experience, even though it's been out since 2011. So, with all this said, there was no reason for a PC player to buy the remaster. The graphics are already great on a PC as it is. They're always above and better than the console versions when they release. They were already improved by the modding community over the life cycle of the game. And the content released with the remastered version was just the base game. And many players already had this anyway. So the remastered version ultimately was completely and utterly pointless on the PC. So you just have an inconsistent experience here across platforms. You have the PC players that didn't like it. You have console players like myself, at least me anyway, that enjoyed the remaster. So it's just that the value provided to the community wasn't consistent there, and ultimately it caused Skyrim, at least on the PC, to fall very much flat in terms of the remaster. Now, in addition to these cons basically that I'm talking about, there's other things that people always say about them, about remasters, and basically from a developer standpoint, it's like, why spend additional time on an old title? Why not focus on new projects, especially if the remaster you're going to make is just going to be at its core able to be played on the new consoles? Good questions to ask, of course. You have another, gripe that people always talk about is the fact that, remasters are basically money grabs. You have, for instance, Call of Duty 4 Remastered. Hello, Activision. So basically with Call of Duty 4, for people that aren't familiar, I can't imagine you would be unfamiliar at this point, but with Call of Duty 4 Remastered, you had to buy Infinite Warfare in order to play it, which means they were going to release their new game, which apparently they had no confidence in, and you had to buy in order to play Call of Duty 4, which, by the way, pretty much everybody loved to play and thought it was amazing and one of the best Call of Duty games of all time, you had to buy the Infinite Warfare version, which, to be honest with you, sucked. I mean, I've seen ratings for this game. It's like 2.7 out of 5. Not very good. So this is, again, I mean, it's just bad business, really. It just... Activision always gets criticized for being really money hungry and greedy, and this doesn't really help their image at all, to be honest with you. And it also shows that they're just churning out bullshit, basically, and tagging on Call of Duty 4 Remastered in order to sell their product. So it's just bad business. It's not good for anybody. So again, remasters are good. They're bad. They have their cons. But with that said, I kind of wanted to talk about also the best and the worst remasters released. So to name a few of each, I've been looking online. I've seen people talking about their favorite remasters, and I've seen journalists also writing about them on websites. So I kind of just picked a few out of here that I was familiar with, some that I'm really not familiar with, but hopefully some of you guys are out there. So the best remasters that I've found, one of which, to start off, was The Last of Us, which basically included the Left Behind DLC or add-on, which dealt with Ellie's past, new multiplayer maps, and more. So as you can see, old game, remastered graphically, new content added in, new multiplayer maps, new experiences. Keeps the game fresh. Quality remaster. Then you have Pokemon Fire Red / Leaf Green, Metal Gear Solid HD Collection, The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker HD, Uncharted, again, I mentioned this before, improved on the original game, graphically improved everything, made the game just feel fresh and more beautiful. Good remaster. And then finally you have Metro Redux. Again, a game I'm not really familiar with myself, but I've seen a lot of people out there refer to this as the best remaster they've ever played in their life, so I figured I might as well include it in the best remasters. Now, in terms of the worst remasters here, I have Prototype 1 and Prototype 2, which suffered from frame rate issues, little graphical improvements, and a very, very steep price, which was around like $49.99. So, as you can see, I mean, for all the reasons I just stated, I'm not really sure if releasing a game at basically the price it was released for originally is really the best way to go here. But the next two games I basically wanted to talk about that were that basically really missed the mark when it came to remasters, I actually found on a website called nerdmuch.com, and it's an article written by Alex Hartwig. So he basically talks about two games, Dragon Ball Z Budokai and Silent Hill HD Collection. So this, again, I picked these two games out. I picked this little piece out of his article because I feel like it illustrates what can really go wrong with remasters when a company or a developer really just doesn't put all their time and effort and all the resources into really making something worthwhile to play. So, he writes, this is regarding Dragon Ball Z Budokai. In 2002, the Dragon Ball Z Budokai franchise was created, bringing many of the classic Z fighters together in this epic 3D fighting series. The gameplay is easy to pick up and fun to dish out. When the announcement of a HD collection came up, many were ecstatic to be able to play these great games again. Once the game was released, however, it was apparent that this remaster collection was far from great. The remaster released in 2012 and only included, believe it, if you can believe this, only included Budokai 1 and 3, missing out on the second iteration altogether. The reasoning Namco Bandai gave for this was because out of the three games, the first and third were the games that people wanted more. That being said, Namco Bandai also decided not to add online play and stick with 3 single-player modes and local multiplayer. Though the game is nicely visually updated for PS3 and 360, it is apparent the game is lacking in many other departments. The original soundtrack is replaced, and even some cutscenes are in the original 4x3 display. The games that are included aren't bad, but they missed the mark when trying to reach old fans and newcomers too. Now, I'll read off. Basically, he talks about Silent Hill HD Collection, and again, the problems that this game faced. So he writes, this collection of remastered versions of Silent Hill 2 and 3 were bound for greatness. Silent Hill 2 was released in 2001 and Silent Hill 3 in 2003. It was a fantastic choice to bring these classics to the next generation of consoles. However, a lot of setbacks created a mess and ultimately one of the worst remasters ever. The updated graphics aren't very good, especially since there is a lack of anti-aliasing. The game is plagued by technical issues such as game-crashing bugs, disappearing textures, and even missing sound effects. The PS3 version of the game was later patched to help with these issues, but the 360 owners were literally abandoned and given refunds because of how much of a mess the game was. The game was updated for native 720p with 16:9 display. However, with a game like this, it's easy to look past those improvements. This is a major example of why there's a lot of criticism for HD remasters. Maybe one day we will get to see proper remastered Silent Hill games, but for now, we should keep our old consoles around to play these classics. So, I picked these 2 games out. Like I said, it shows what can go wrong with remasters, but ultimately it also shows that there can just be such a disconnect between the gaming developers, the publishers, and also the users. You know, they may think, oh, well, Budokai 1 and 3 are the games that fans want most, but some people might like Budokai 2 as well. So you don't include that game. Why? I don't know. Another thing is, like with Budokai, Dragon Ball Z Budokai, they didn't include online play. Well, I mean, I feel like that's kind of a bad decision. I mean, in my personal opinion, but it's just, again, it's a general disconnect between the publishers, the developers, and the users. Now, in some cases, the developers might be getting rushed by publishers to get the game out in time. They might have to cut certain features, and in this case, in Dragon Ball Z's case, an entire game out of the remaster. So there's a lot of things that can happen with remasters, a lot of things that can go wrong, but when they go right, it can be a great experience for everybody. So the final verdict, if you want to call it that, I mean, basically just the final word on the topic, so to speak, is that remastered games for me, they aren't good or bad. They can be both. You can have your great experiences, you can have your bad experiences, but ultimately, if a developer basically puts forth their best effort, puts forth all the resources, they can make a remaster that's worthwhile. They can add in new content. They can keep an old game. They can make an old game very much fresh to you and make you basically fall in love with the series all over again. Now, on the other hand, you can have a situation like Dragon Ball Z Budokai, for example, where developer just clearly misses the mark. They leave out several features. They leave out a game out of the trilogy, and ultimately it kind of tarnishes your relationship with the game. You know, you may not trust that developer anymore to make, you know, games in the future. You may be really disappointed with this game. You may not touch Budokai. Now, granted, that's a little extreme, but there's a lot of things that can happen here. You can basically have your relationship damaged with the gaming company. So remastered games can be good. They can be bad. I know that's kind of a wishy-washy final verdict, but it's the truth. So nothing but the truth here on Two Jersey Kids. That's basically it for episode 40.5. I'm really happy to have you guys here. I thank you guys for listening to me, first of all, because I'm without Adam today. I'm soloing this episode, and frankly, I haven't really done this before except for a couple, or at least a review on The Flame and the Flood back in the day. So I thank you all for listening. If you have any feedback, questions, please feel free to tweet us on Twitter at Two Jersey Kids. If you're a new listener, I thank you guys for sticking around. Like I said, Adam wasn't here today. He's on vacation over in California, having a good time out there. So I am by myself, obviously. So our next episode, which will be on Friday, Adam will be back to shoot the shit with me again. We'll talk video games, and you'll get the full Two Jersey Kids experience. Tonight was just one Jersey kid. So again, if you're a new listener, thanks for sticking around. I really appreciate it. Please hit the subscribe button if you really enjoyed listening. If you're an existing listener, again, I appreciate your continued support. We both do, Adam and I. You're basically the reason why we sit down and record every night. You're the reason I'm here right now talking to you. And, again, thanks for listening. I'll see you guys again on Friday. That'll be our news episode that we always have. And I look forward to seeing you guys again. Thanks a lot for listening. Peace out, everybody.